partner, 38F, of 4 years says to me, 34M, that the man should be able to just figure out how to make a woman come. Don't ask me. I've been with my partner for about 4 years. We do not live together, as she only recently finalized her divorce from her husband. To clarify, they had been separated for quite some time before the divorce was official, but her husband seemed to be in denial about the separation. Despite her clearly telling him, "I consider us to be separated already," he did not accept it. Now that the divorce is finalized, she has moved into her own place, where she lives with her 3 kids for 4 days out of the week. She is an incredibly shy and private person when it comes to relationships and intimacy. For instance, her children are not aware that I am their mother's partner. She is from a rural community in Kenya, where a form of female genital mutilation, FGM, is practiced, specifically involving the partial removal of the clitoris. When she shared this with me, I was shocked to also learn that she has never masturbated before and is generally very unknowledgeable when it comes to sex. Reflecting on this, her experience began to make more sense in light of the traditional practice of circumcision in her community, as well as the cultural attitudes surrounding sex in Kenya. From what she has shared, sex education was minimal and far less comprehensive than what is typically offered in the US. It seemed to be heavily focused on abstinence and framed sex as inherently bad, with the belief that discussing it too much would encourage young adults to engage in it. When I explained to her that masturbation is generally considered a normal part of human development and something that many children, teenagers, and adults engage in, she was shocked and said she didn't believe me. I realized that her form of FGM likely affected her sensitivity, which may have played a significant role in shaping her experience. The ways that children often discover masturbation, such as accidentally brushing their genitals against something and finding it pleasurable without initially understanding why, are likely experiences she never had. This, combined with the cultural silence and stigma surrounding sexual topics, seems to have contributed to her lack of knowledge and exploration in this area. In the past, I have shared with her some general opinions and advice that I've come across, including insights from online communities like this one and subreddits focused on sexual health and relationships. One point I've emphasized is the idea that it can be very challenging for someone to effectively communicate to their partner what makes them feel good if they haven't taken the time to explore their own bodies first. I thought this was a helpful and logical perspective, but she has gotten angry with me before when I've brought up topics like masturbation or using toys during intimacy. She has said things like, "That's pornographic stuff. That isn't real sex," which made it clear that she views these ideas as completely separate from what she considers acceptable or authentic within a sexual relationship. When it comes to our sexual experiences together, it has become apparent that her form of FGM has likely resulted in a noticeable loss of sensitivity. While I don't claim to be any sort of sexual expert or a Casanova, I've always done my best to make sure our time together is as pleasurable and satisfying as possible for her. For example, during PIV sex, I've made a concerted effort to last as long as I can to ensure that she has ample time to feel pleasure and enjoy the experience. Like many men, if I were to focus solely on reaching climax as quickly as possible, I could ejaculate within a few minutes. However, I have worked on regulating my pace and controlling myself so that I can last longer, giving her more time and opportunity to enjoy our intimacy. At my best, I've managed to last for around 20 minutes during PIV sex, though by that point my physical stamina is typically reaching its limit. Beyond that, the strain on my muscles and overall fatigue make it difficult to continue. On average, I aim to last somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, as I've found that this is a manageable range where I can still be present and focused on her experience without completely exhausting myself. Despite my efforts, though, I sometimes wonder if the reduced sensitivity she experiences due to FGM makes it harder for her to fully enjoy or derive the same level of pleasure from our intimacy as she might otherwise. This has been an ongoing consideration for me, and I continue to think about how I can best support her and help foster an environment where she feels comfortable exploring and communicating her needs and desires. She has shared with me that, during our time together, she has only experienced an orgasm from PIV sex on one single occasion. Hearing this was difficult, not because I expect her to experience an orgasm every time, but because it made me reflect on whether I am truly meeting her needs or if there are factors outside of my control contributing to this. I tried to gently inquire further to understand her experience better, asking if this was something typical for her during her previous relationships, hoping that knowing more might help me approach things in a more informed way. However, she firmly refused to discuss the matter, saying that she did not want to talk about her sexual experiences with other men with me. I respected her decision not to share, but it left me with unanswered questions and a lingering sense of uncertainty about how to proceed. Her response made me realize that she has a deep discomfort when it comes to discussing her sexual history, even in a context where the goal is to improve intimacy and communication between us. This has made it challenging to fully understand what might work best for her or to identify ways I could adjust my approach to better suit her needs. While I've done my best to ensure that our sexual experiences are pleasurable and meaningful for her, I sometimes feel like I'm navigating in the dark, trying different things and hoping they resonate with her. I want to emphasize that her pleasure and satisfaction are just as important as my own, and I've always approached intimacy with the intention of making it a mutually fulfilling experience. Yet, I can't ignore the possibility that external factors, like her cultural upbringing, FGM, or past experiences, may be impacting her ability to fully enjoy and connect with this part of our relationship. Despite her reluctance to discuss her past or explore topics like masturbation or sexual aids, I remain committed to being patient and supportive. I recognize that her journey toward feeling fully comfortable and open with her sexuality is something deeply personal, and it's not something that can or should be rushed. Still, I sometimes wish we could have more open conversations about these aspects of our relationship, not for the sake of comparison or judgment, but as a way to deepen our understanding of each other and build a stronger foundation for intimacy moving forward. From the very beginning of our relationship, I assumed it would be important to prioritize her pleasure during intimacy, especially since I've read that most women need clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm. I also believed it was the considerate and natural thing to do to engage in oral stimulation before moving to PIV sex. As a result, I've always made sure to start our sexual encounters with extended foreplay that leads to cunnilingus, aiming to bring her to orgasm before penetration. However, I've noticed that cunnilingus typically takes a significant amount of time, usually around 10 to 15 minutes, to result in an orgasm for her. While I am absolutely willing to invest this time and effort, it has occasionally left me wondering whether there might be a more effective or pleasurable way to help her reach orgasm. I've asked her directly, "What can I do to help you come?" And she shared that her nipples are actually more sensitive than her clitoris. She suggested that I focus on sucking her nipples rather than concentrating exclusively on clitoral stimulation. Additionally, she mentioned that I should use my opposite hand to finger her and simultaneously massage her clitoris. I made an effort to try this approach and it did work, but I found that it generally required about the same amount of time as cunnilingus, around 10 to 15 minutes, to bring her to orgasm. Just last night, I decided to ask her again for clarification on her preferences. I wanted to understand whether she truly prefers nipple sucking combined with fingering or if she enjoys cunnilingus more. She confirmed that nipple sucking is her preferred method for stimulation leading to orgasm. I took the opportunity to share my perspective and told her that the last time we used this method, I was right on the verge of telling her that my hand was cramping and I couldn't continue much longer when fortunately she did climax. It was an honest moment where I tried to communicate the physical challenge while also making it clear that I'm fully invested in her pleasure. Since we were having an open conversation, I decided to gently introduce the idea of incorporating toys into our lovemaking. I explained that using toys could help alleviate some of the physical strain for me while still providing her with intense and pleasurable sensations. Additionally, I suggested that toys could add variety and potentially make the experience more enjoyable for her as well. I hoped that framing the idea in this way would make her more receptive to considering it, as I genuinely want to explore anything that could enhance our intimacy and satisfaction. When I suggested the idea of incorporating toys into our sex life, her response was that if she were to use toys, then what would she need a man for? She seemed to view toys as a replacement for a man rather than something that could enhance the experience between partners. I tried to gently challenge that perspective by explaining that the use of toys during sex doesn't have to diminish the role of a partner or imply inadequacy. Instead, I argued that toys can be a way to explore new sensations and bring variety to intimacy. I even pointed out that in some relationships, such as those without a penis present, toys can play a role in enhancing sexual pleasure, though they aren't necessarily required in such situations either. I emphasized that using toys during sex is actually quite common and that placing a stigma on their usage seemed arbitrary and unnecessary. Unfortunately, she refused to see it from my point of view and remained firm in her stance. Wanting to move forward constructively, I asked her what she thought I could do to make sex more pleasurable for her, given that toys were clearly not an option she was open to exploring. Her response was one of visible frustration. She said, "A man should be able to just figure out how to make a woman come. Don't ask me." At that point, the conversation took a more difficult turn. She became increasingly exasperated and said she hated talking about topics like masturbation and toys. She expressed her frustration by suggesting, almost out of despair, that maybe we should stop having sex altogether. She went further to say that perhaps we should have an open relationship so I could go and fuck women who come easier if that's what I wanted, while leaving her alone in this regard. Her comments and tone clearly indicated that she was deeply uncomfortable and upset, and it seemed like the discussion had pushed her beyond what she was willing to engage with. Her suggestion of an open relationship and her declaration of possibly avoiding sex altogether felt more like expressions of frustration and emotional overwhelm rather than a serious proposal. It left me feeling unsure about how to approach the topic moving forward. I'm trying to understand how to navigate these conversations in a way that respects her boundaries while still addressing the concerns and questions I have about our intimacy. It's clear to me that she feels a strong aversion to discussing topics like toys, masturbation, or even exploring ways to improve our sexual connection. At the same time, I feel stuck because without communication, it's incredibly challenging to make meaningful progress or ensure that our physical relationship is fulfilling for both of us. I'd like to hear some input or advice on how I might approach these discussions in the future. I want to respect her feelings and discomfort while also finding a way to keep our lines of communication open. I'm hoping there are ways to bridge this gap, but right now, it feels like we're at an impasse. Any insights or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Too long to didn't read. Partner says that I need to just figure out on my own how to help her have an orgasm faster and with more consistency, refuses to talk about it. She has loss of sensitivity from FGM, takes around 10 to 15 minutes to orgasm from oral, refuses to entertain the idea of using toys during sex. Gets angry at discussing all of this. Edit this post. I've had enough of this. The experience here has been incredibly frustrating and disheartening. Far too many of the comments I've seen have been rude, abusive, and condescending, and it's honestly beyond what I'm willing to tolerate. While I did find a handful of comments that were genuinely helpful and insightful, they were completely overshadowed by the sheer volume of negativity, hostility, and unnecessary judgment from the rest. To the few people who took the time to respond thoughtfully and provide meaningful input, thank you. I truly appreciate your effort and kindness. But to the rest of you, congratulations on showing me just how toxic and unproductive this space can be. This entire experience has been a wake-up call for me. I've realized that I need to avoid this subreddit like the goddamn plague in the future. I honestly thought I'd seen some miserable and unwelcoming groups of people before, but this has been a whole new level of unpleasantness. I came here hoping for constructive advice, support, or at least a conversation grounded in mutual respect. Instead, I found a cesspool of negativity that has left me feeling far worse than when I arrived. To those who felt the need to be cruel or dismissive, I hope you take a moment to reflect on the impact of your words. It's not just about me. There are countless others who come here looking for help and leave feeling worse because of the way they're treated. If this is what passes for a community here, then I want no part of it. Again, thank you to the few individuals who offered genuine and thoughtful comments. Your efforts didn't go unnoticed even amidst the chaos. As for the rest, I'm done with this. Moving forward, I'll be seeking advice and support elsewhere. Somewhere where the conversation is constructive and the people involved actually care about fostering a positive and supportive environment. Thank you for listening the story to the end. If you enjoy our videos, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.